January 6th, Insurrection, Riot, or scam. So before we go any further, we're going to define the terms of insurrection, riot, and scam. Here we have the definition of insurrection per the Cambridge Dictionary: an organized attempt by a group of people to defeat their government and take control of their country, usually by violence. Not always, but usually. And also from the Cambridge Dictionary, riot, the definition of, is an occasion when a large number of people behave in a noisy, violent, and uncontrolled way in public. And lastly, we come to the definition of scam: a dishonest plan for making money or getting advantage, especially one that involves tricking people. So now we have all the definitions out, so we know what we're talking about, unlike leftists who just say something and make you assume what they're thinking about. As a conservative, I'm going to tell you my definitions based on Cambridge Dictionary in this case, so that we understand going forward what each word means in context. So let's start with the narrative that the leftist scumbag Democrats and their mainstream media puppets are pushing. January 6th was an insurrection.
Scene of January 6th. They're familiar because they've been playing on a loop on every media outlet in America for the last 2 years. There's a reason for that. But it turns out there's...
Okay, so that's what the mainstream media have been pushing. And, you know, that's how they do it, because they don't care about the truth. They just care about the narrative that it was a horrible thing. So I'll show you the next part. Shows it was a little bit different. Let me show here. You know, because it wasn't everybody, it was just a small group. Let's play that part.
Quite a bit of video you haven't seen. And that video tells a very different story about what happened on January 6th.
Picking up seats,
more than 40,000 hours of surveillance footage from in and around the Capitol have been withheld from the public. And once you see the video, you'll understand why. Taken as a whole, the video record does not support the claim that January 6th was an insurrection. In fact, it demolishes that claim. And that's exactly why the Democratic Party and its allies in the media prevented you from seeing it.
So I'm going to stop the video so I don't get copyright infringement or anything like that. But everybody here wanted one thing. They wanted Mike Pence to ask that the states double check the ballots, make sure that everything was legitimate, make sure only ballot votes were counted. Nothing, no fake people, no dead people voting, all that kind of stuff. That's all they want. That's all the protests wanted. That's not an insurrection. That is enforcing law. And that's not a bad thing. That's what you want, you know. So that's what's going on here. And I'm going to put on something else here in a minute. Hold on, pause this. So here I'm going to show how our media is just a puppet, and they just repeat the same story over and over. Hopefully it's picking up the sound. I'll put a link in below just in case it doesn't do it properly. But what they're doing is
someone opened the doors, and many hundreds of others just walked in. Of course, they did make it the story. And at the center of it, the single most famous person arrested that day was a Navy veteran from Arizona called Jacob Chansley, often referred to as the QAnon shaman.
The so-called QAnon shaman. QAnon shaman.
Someone named Q Shaman.
Jacob Chansley became the face of January 6th, a dangerous conspiracy theorist dressed in outlandish costume who led the violent insurrection to overthrow American democracy. For these crimes, Chansley was sentenced to nearly 4 years in prison, far more time than many violent criminals now receive. What did Jacob Chansley do to receive this punishment?
It's been a big
lie. To this day, there is dispute over how Chansley got into the Capitol building. But according to our review of the internal surveillance video, it is very clear what happened once he got inside. Virtually every moment of his time inside the Capitol was caught on tape. The tapes show that Capitol Police never stopped Jacob Chansley. They helped him. They acted as his tour guide.
If you see here, the police allowed them into the building, which is something you don't have, doesn't happen in the insurrection. They would force their way and not be allowed in. Take a look.
on the floor of the Senate. Watch.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for giving the inspiration needed to these police officers to allow us in this building.
Contrast the reality of what Jacob Chansley did in the Capitol building on January 6th, the indisputable facts recorded on video, some of which has never before been seen, with the depiction of Jacob Chansley that you've seen in the media for more than 2 years. He's a terrorist, they said. He should be killed.
Shoot him. Shoot him. Like, you burst into the United States, if he was dressed like Bin Laden, would you have shot him?
Shoot him. Shoot him.
Or be destroyed.
It makes you wonder, who are the violent extremists here? Not Jacob Chansley.
That's how all social
governments are.
And the video proves
that.
They destroy
but you never have known
from
the media coverage.
The people sitting in the chairs
doesn't agree with them.
Need to be sitting in a jail cell.
Chansley is in a jail cell. He's been there for months. If he was in fact committing, it was neither an insurrection nor deadly.
Proof of this scumbag media.
January 6th, when an estimated 2,000 rioters breached the Capitol building, causing the deaths of 5 police officers.
This is a lie. They didn't cause the death of any police officers. That's been proven, but they still say it
1941,
because most people won't look beyond the headlines.
September 11th,
and this
2001,
idiot
and January 6th.
The mob beat officers with anything they had on them: hockey stick, a flagpole, a fire extinguisher. Police officers died.
Donald Trump supporters who, of course, rioted and killed police officers.
By the evening of January 6th, the Democratic Party and its publicists in the national news media had settled on a description of what had happened that day.
They don't do anything.
They distilled an enormous number of highly complex events that even now we don't fully understand, into a single emotionally laden political slogan, which they've repeated for years with remarkable discipline. January 6th, they said, was a deadly insurrection.
There was a deadly insurrection that the right wing is trying to cover up.
He incited a deadly insurrection.
Incited a deadly insurrection.
The violent, deadly insurrection on the Capitol 9 months ago, it was about white supremacy, in my view.
A deadly insurrection. Everything about that phrase is a lie. Very little about January 6th was organized or violent. Surveillance video from inside the Capitol shows mostly peaceful chaos.
This is what leftists don't
but
like.
the slogan worked.
Truth, and they will
the
keep
term deadly carries enormous
emotional
emotional power, which is why they used it.
The left does not
to prove
care
the insurrection
about truth.
was deadly, propagandists pointed to the death of an officer called Brian Sicknick.
How many people
the mob
throw in
killed
jail
Officer
who have
Brian
done nothing
Sicknick.
wrong?
That's what they said.
Because
it was their
scumbags
single
don't know
most
vote
powerful indictment of the January 6th protest.
I got to talk to
of Donald Trump and of Republican voters nationally. They repeated that claim for years. They are still repeating it. At first, they told the country that Officer Sicknick was murdered with a fire extinguisher.
Officer Brian Sicknick died after being hit in the head with a fire extinguisher during the fight.
That story came from the New York Times, which is effectively the assignment editor for most of the rest of American media. It was a lie, untrue in any way. But only after that lie had hardened into conventional wisdom did the newspaper bother to retract it.
The New York Times has quietly retracted its story about the death of Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick.
The damage had been done. Brian Sicknick, himself a Trump voter, had been transformed without his consent into a political martyr of the left. His memory was shamelessly exploited by the incoming Biden administration. In February of 2021, Sicknick's body lay in...
See, after these points that I think I've made well, the only way a judge could continue trying to prosecute Trump for January 6th is if they suffer from Trump derangement syndrome, which I think almost every prosecutor and judge who's going against Trump suffers from, which is caused by the mainstream media, along with just people who are just crazy. I say, here I think the mainstream media is the cause of Trump derangement syndrome, but most of the public, Democrats are just power-hungry scumbags, so they just hate him because he's not going to go along with their program and be bought. Okay, so we got Trump here. He's going to talk about how he sent that letter to Pelosi and Bower, warning them in advance. So if there was insurrection, the plan would not be to warn them. The plan would not be to offer the troops under their control that would make any sense. So that also debunks the January 6th insurrection. Again, Trump was not planning to overthrow the government, and this proves it right here.
D.C. from 10 to 20,000 troops, because I thought the crowd was going to be very, very large coming in, because I felt it. You could see it. And they turned it down. And if they didn't turn it down, and Kash Patel is a witness, right? I think I can say you're a witness, but we have many other witnesses to that. From 10 to 20,000, they turned it down. And had they not turned it down, you wouldn't have had January 6th as we know it. But the president is not supposed to be sending in it.
Now here we have some of the House committee trials, and this is what I posit my theory. I don't have proof of this, because if I did, I'd probably find myself, in an unalive position. But this here shows about how Ray Epps, who got no time virtually, and then the guy from Proud Boys got 20 years, and he wasn't even there. It's just retarded that somebody who instigates the riot could get away with nothing. So here's gonna talk about how they got started, and it also talks about also the video in this chain. You see other videos of the people who planted the bomb or whatever, but I'm not gonna talk about that. But what I want to say about this is, I think that the insurrection did happen, but it was Biden and the Democrats who instigated it, because I think that they planned a lot of this. They had warnings to protect themselves, and they took none of it. And I think they just did it so that they can keep people distracted, so that they wouldn't be able to check on all the false ballots and all the other scams that Democrats used to win the 2020 election. But I'm gonna play this now.
We need to go into the Capitol. Into the Capitol. Into the Capitol. What? We are going to the Capitol, where our problems are. It's that direction. Please spread the word. All right. Noted. Okay, but one more thing. Yeah, so can we go up there? No? When we go in, are we going to get arrested if we go up there? Yeah. You don't need to get shot. Arrest us.
And also the fact that the FBI could not deny that they had plants in the crowd. In that
there he is, breaching the line, going in at the first breach into the Capitol, grounds, a restricted area. Mr. Ray, you have arrested hundreds of people related to January 6th.
Good about
and there have been people arrested for breaching Capitol grounds.
I'm surprised.
Huey Griffin is an example. Rachel Genko is an example. And then we go to Mr. Brandon Strecka. Brandon was arrested for disorderly and disruptive conduct, which included yelling, I quote, "Go, go, go," as rioters tried to empty the Capitol. These three never went into the Capitol. They never assaulted anyone. So let's be honest with each other. There is very little difference between the actions of Ray Epps and Brandon Strecka that day, but yet Strecka was arrested and Epps wasn't. Epps also testified to the January 6th committee. He was back at his hotel when video evidence showed that he wasn't. He lied. He was on the Capitol grounds just as Brandon Strecka was. Epps even texted his nephew at 2:12 p.m. and said, I quote, "I was in the front with a few others. It was on the video. I also orchestrated it." Now look into the camera, sir, when you answer my next question. Are you going to arrest Mr. Epps, yes or no?
Decision. If
this guy's a scumbag, and hopefully he'll go to jail soon.
At the Capitol on January 6th was part of some operation.
Now, the second part is, was January 6th a riot? And the answer is, there were rioters there, but it was a very small percentage of the people there. And compared to other riots, it was very tame. Still wrong, but very tame. It's like somebody who steals a candy bar versus somebody who steals the register. That's the kind of thing. They're not equal. They're both bad, but one is far worse than the other. So I went to this little protest when Trump took office, and these idiots out here, and those guys who broke in, those were idiots too. Let's skip this. They wouldn't have been able to go back to the House to vote, but they were because those people did very little damage because they were not trying to overthrow a government. But some, and I'm thinking a lot of those were probably FBI plants, were doing the stupid stuff. And I wonder how people, the DOJ, really prosecuted this. They did the same thing again. They looked at all the videos, the phone that locked all these people up. And they burned down churches, set cars on fire. Nothing in January 6th compares to that. Yet because our mainstream media is run by scumbags, we have a false narrative that January 6th compares to Pearl Harbor. The dumbest people like Kamala Harris could say something like that.
Everybody, her choice.
My body, my choice.
You have no right to tell me that I cannot go this way. I have every right to go this way.
President, not my president, not my president, not my president.
Not my president.
Not my president. Not my president.
And lastly, we put the, I'm going to say, was January 6th a scam? And I think it goes along that it was part scam. So two things can be true at the same time. I think the riot, because of the FBI infiltration and the explosive refusing the guard and everything going their way instead of being a regular uneventful protest like almost like every other Trump protest was, this one was a little bit planned. And I have this picture of Biden when he's talking about how they're going to steal the election and how they plan to. I think they're going to try to do the same thing this year, is steal it again, because they want to do drop box, they want to use mail-in ballots, they want to use the fear of virus X, which is like COVID, which when you look at the numbers, if you actually looked at them, most people didn't. You know, it was only harmful to like 0.3% of the population. So that means 99.97% of the population could have been just fine. But they worked on that, and they're good at that. So we have to make sure we keep it in mind. We don't let them change laws like they did. They changed Secretary of State's violated laws, violated the Constitution to let people vote who shouldn't have. They put out all kinds of, absentee ballots for people who didn't need it. They sent like 10 to some houses where only 2 people there. They never clean the voter rolls because they dare people to still vote, especially in Chicago. But Chicago's a fucking hellhole right now, unfortunately. Could be better, but it won't, because the mayor there is horrible. That's the whole point. So let me start this and see how there's some information on it, and that'll be almost the end of this video. Listen here.
Together, I think the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
That should have been Trump's line all through election 2020.
Let me say it again.
The 2020 election was the most secure
election in American history.
Let me begin by asking a very simple question. Do we know the truth about what really happened in the 2020 election?
I think millions of Americans know something went wrong, and they have little pieces, and no one's really put it together.
I'm agnostic on this question, and I am awaiting more information.
If I believed the president were a Nazi, I might steal an election.
Bold accusations require bold evidence, and they haven't seen it.
We have been working on something big.
Show me the money.
Can we meet? I've been working with Greg Phillips. He has a deep background in election intelligence.
True the Vote has the largest store of election intelligence for the 2020 elections in the world. No one has more data than we do. We identified in Atlanta 242 mules that went to an average of 24 drop boxes. But Philadelphia alone, we've identified more than 1,100 mules.
What is a mule?
Person picking up ballots and running them to the drop boxes.
This is not grandma out walking her dog. Bad backgrounds, bad reputations. They are interested in one thing, that's money.
And in no shape, in no way, in no time is that legal.
This is organized crime.
Do you have video evidence?
4 million minutes of surveillance video around the country.
Hopefully somebody will go to jail if they don't steal this election.
What you're about to see is disturbing.
So this is 1 o'clock in the morning.
Don't we all vote at 1 o'clock in the morning?
On one night, this person, this mule, went across 6 counties to 27 different drop boxes.
I call it the Mexican mafia, seriously, because they work like that.
This is jaw-dropping.
What you showed is frightening.
It's just sickening to me.
Now we come to the most important question of all. Was the magnitude of vote trafficking enough to tip the balance in the 2020 presidential election?
It's not a leap to say this would have made a difference.
They have ruined Election Day in the United States of America. That's provable. And that's enough for me to fight the left with every fiber in my body.
Without free and fair elections, we are not a democracy. We are a criminal cartel masquerading as a democracy.
2,000 mules.
When he says the cartel part,
in theaters May 20th.
Is Cartel's Man of the Year. Well, for the 5 people that view my videos, I'm asking you, what do you think? Agree, disagree, have other points? Let me know. And also, as usual, I have the links for all the merch, my merch at the bottom of here, talking about my shirts and tees, so we can make leftist heads explode. Figuratively, not actually, for the YouTube people who are too stupid to understand sarcasm. Bye. And hope I get some feedback from this one.